What would you do if one morning you drove 2 hours to your quiet family cabin in the woods, and the only road in was blocked with a steel gate? No warning, no explanation. Just a smug little sign that says, HOA-Controlled Access, no unauthorized entry. But what if I told you that bridge, the one they just locked you out of, is actually yours? What if they were the trespassers? What if the entire gated community they live in is only accessible through your land? And what if you had the power to turn their own rules against them, to seal them in, the same way they tried to lock you out? This isn't just a story about an HOA drunk on power. This is about legacy, land, and how I used one wooden bridge to bring an entire neighborhood to its knees. Let me tell you what really happened. Because the moment they chained that gate shut, they set something in motion they never saw coming. And when a man's locked out of his own home, he doesn't just knock, he builds a gate of his own. Let me start from the beginning. HOA blocked my cabin access, didn't know I owned the only bridge in. Section 1, hook, 250 words. They took my keys, but I had the master lock. You ever wake up to find the road to your own home gone? Not under construction, not detoured. I mean blocked, cut off, stolen. That's exactly what happened one icy Thursday morning in late October. I was heading up to my family's remote log cabin, the one I spent childhood summers at, where my dad taught me how to split wood and bait a trout line. A 2-hour drive, a gravel switchback road, and then one bridge, one wooden, one-lane bridge that crossed over a ravine into our secluded land. Only this time, there was something new at the bridge entrance. A steel gate, bright red chain, and a smug, laminated sign. This access point is now HOA controlled. No unauthorized vehicles permitted beyond this point. I slammed the brakes. I wasn't confused. I was stunned. Because here's the thing, that bridge they took over, I built it, I designed it, I own it, and it doesn't sit on HOA land. It sits on mine. That's right, they'd locked me out of my own property, using my own bridge. What they didn't know, they'd just woken a sleeping bear. And when a man gets boxed out of the one place that keeps him sane, the one retreat his father left him in a will, he's not going to knock on the gate politely. No, he's going to burn their rule book, plank by plank. Stick around, because what came next? Let's just say that bridge goes both ways. The cabin sat nestled in a pinewood cradle atop Fair Hollow Ridge, about 60 miles from the city. It was the kind of place you'd see on a jigsaw puzzle box. Mossy green roofs, a smoke trail from the chimney, deer tracks in the snow. The land had been in my family since 1952, when my grandfather traded 2 Studebakers and a service rifle for 40 acres of rugged heaven. But about 5 years ago, trouble began creeping up the valley in khakis and clipboards. A newly formed HOA had taken over the Fair Hollow Ridge development on the east side of the mountain, a gated community of luxury cabins that promised rustic elegance and protected nature. At first they were harmless, some overzealous landscaping fines, a couple newsletters with birdwatching schedules. Then came Diane Farrow, HOA president, former realtor, professional peacock. She moved into the biggest property on the ridge and immediately decided she'd been crowned Queen of the Woods. Within 3 months, she had declared the entire outer perimeter, including my bridge, common access points. Problem is, my land predates their development by 70 years. I never signed into the HOA, never took part in their elections, never even received their welcome basket of lavender soap and judgment. But that didn't stop Diane. When I confronted her at a local town hall about the new access control initiative, she smiled and said, "If you're not a dues-paying member, you're not entitled to complain about our security measures." I told her plainly, "That bridge is mine. It's marked on 3 surveys in the county deed." She waved her hand like I was swatting a fly. "Then maybe you should build a new one." A week later, I found orange surveyor flags along the ravine as if they were preparing to reroute my access entirely. That was just the beginning. Over the next few days, I started receiving citations from an HOA I wasn't part of. One claimed I had violated the community's aesthetic standards by stacking too much firewood behind my cabin. Another said my solar panels reflected light improperly and disrupted the ridge view. And then the clincher, a letter stating that the bridge would be permanently sealed to non-HOA traffic for the preservation of ecological integrity. Ecological integrity. The bridge was over a man-made ditch dug by my great-uncle in 1974. Dog, something stunk. They weren't just throwing their weight around, they were baiting me, trying to trap me into challenging them legally or emotionally so they could drag it through court and bleed me dry with bureaucracy. That's when I knew this wasn't about safety. This was about control. And people like Diane didn't understand something crucial. I don't play by HOA rules. I write my own. And if they thought the gate would stop me, well, they had no idea what that bridge really connected. They say when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Diane showed me, over and over. After they padlocked my bridge, I didn't take the bait immediately. I let the dust settle, but I drove up the next weekend with a bolt cutter in my deed in hand. I wasn't trying to start a war, I was trying to go home. But when I arrived, there were now cameras mounted on poles near the bridge. Solar-powered units pointed squarely at the entrance. A fresh sign had been posted beneath them. Smile. You are trespassing. That did it. I walked up to the gate, yanked out my phone, and filmed myself holding the original 1975 county deed. It showed the property lines clearly, and most importantly, the bridge was well within my boundary. I uploaded the video online. Just me, standing calmly beside a steel chain, explaining how an HOA I never joined was locking me out of a property they didn't own. By the next morning, the video had 28,000 views. That's when things got weird. First came the anonymous HOA fine slips mailed to my city address for violations like overgrown grass and hazardous tool storage. I hadn't even been to the cabin in weeks. Then came the phone calls. A muffled voice pretending to be with the County Road Commission. Sir, we have concerns about the structural safety of your bridge. You may be subject to fines or dismantlement if you continue using it without permits. I called the county. They had no record of such a complaint. It was fake, fabricated. So I returned again, this time with a friend of mine who happened to be a retired county surveyor. We both stood on the bridge, ran GPS lines, and measured every foot of property. It all checked out. But 2 days later, my friend's truck was towed from the roadside near the HOA's development, towed from public land. When he demanded answers, the company claimed it was at the HOA's request for abandoned property. That was their game. Harass, intimidate, exhaust. Next came the sabotage. One morning, I arrived to find someone had scattered roofing nails across the gravel on my side of the bridge. 3 flat tires. Not a coincidence. Another time, the solar panels on my cabin had been spray-painted black, completely ruined. The words, "No trespass," were scrawled across them. But the craziest moment? A man dressed like a security guard tried to physically stop me from crossing the bridge. He stood in the middle like a troll under a drawbridge, shouting, "Turn around or you'll be cited." I calmly held up the deed. He didn't flinch. "You're in violation of HOA protocol," he said. I replied, "And you're in violation of state trespass law. This is private property." He looked confused, nervous. I snapped a picture of him and told him to leave. He did quick. Turns out he wasn't even with a licensed security agency. Diane had hired a neighborhood patrol company from 2 counties over, with no legal authority whatsoever. I compiled every incident, the nails, the fake fines, the surveillance, the threats, the damages, and something occurred to me. They weren't just trying to control the bridge. They were trying to force me to abandon the land, to sell, to surrender. That's when I discovered the final piece of the puzzle. I got a call from a local land broker, someone I'd known for years. He told me, "Hey, just letting you know, I was approached by someone trying to buy your parcel. Cash, no contingencies. They said you'd be willing soon." I asked who it was. he said. Didn't give a name, but the caller ID said, Fair Hollow Association. That's when the dam broke. They wanted my land. And they were willing to torment, harass, and lie their way into getting it through blockade, intimidation, and social pressure. But they made one mistake. They thought I was just a man with a bridge. What they didn't know, that bridge was more than an entrance. It was a lever, and I was about to pull it. Because the HOA didn't realize until it was too late that the only legal access road to the Fair Hollow development passed right through my bridge easement. That's right. They needed me more than I ever needed them. Time to show them. The moment I confirmed that the only legal vehicle access road into Fair Hollow Ridge crossed my land, everything changed. I wasn't just defending my bridge anymore. I was controlling theirs. See, when Fair Hollow was first developed, the original property owners, my family, agreed to a temporary easement in exchange for a utility hookup from the town. That old agreement expired in 2002, but the HOA never renewed it officially. They just kept using the road, quietly, illegally. And that bridge? It was the only road in. No alternate path, no back entrance, no helicopter pad. So while Diane and her clipboard army were busy trying to blockade me with gates, fines, and fake patrolmen, they were driving across my bridge every single day, blind to the irony. I hired a lawyer, a real one, the kind with maps, highlighted deeds, and a smile like a steel trap. Together we drafted a cease and desist order. Then we filed an easement revocation and use violation with the county registrar. We gave the HOA 14 days to vacate any use of my private road and bridge or face trespassing charges and access revocation. Then, I did something beautiful. I didn't just send Diane the paperwork. I posted copies of it blown up 2x3 feet on both sides of the bridge, laminated, with bold red letters. Effective immediately. Fair Hollow Ridge HOA is prohibited from using this access road. No vehicle entry permitted. And beneath it, a quote from their own sign, Smile, you are trespassing. Oh, and I added my own little twist. I installed a reinforced steel gate on my side of the bridge. Not the cheap HOA kind, but a professionally welded structure with a magnetic keycard lock and a motion sensor camera. Access cards. Only issued to me, my family, and verified county vehicles. I even set up a motion-activated speaker system. When someone pulled up, a calm robotic voice played, Access denied. Please contact the property owner. Violators will be prosecuted. It was poetic. By day 2, chaos broke out. Cars lined up at the gate, residents confused, HOA board members fuming. Diane called my lawyer 6 times in one afternoon. We demand access. This is illegal. He simply replied, No. What's illegal is you using this road without an active easement. You've got 200 acres and no roads, Diane. Maybe it's time for a helicopter. Then came the emergency HOA meeting. They tried to pressure me into granting a new easement with fees, permits, and get this, an HOA application. I laughed so hard I nearly fell out of my chair. That weekend, I hosted a barbecue on my side of the bridge, invited locals, old-timers, even a few HOA residents who secretly couldn't stand Diane. I called it the Freedom Cookout. We grilled right next to the new steel gate while Diane and the board sat on the other side with binoculars and frustration. The symbolism? Delicious. They tried to gate me out. I gated them in. Poetic justice, seasoned and seared. And the best part, turns out the HOA had promised guaranteed access in their contracts with new residents. Now that access was gone. Lawsuits started flying, but not toward me. Residents were suing the HOA board for misrepresentation, for fraud, for breach of contract. And Diane? Well, her peacock strut turned into a limp pretty quickly. She resigned a week later. Rumor has it she moved to Arizona, probably to ruin someone else's view of a cactus. By the time Diane resigned, Fair Hollow Ridge was in total disarray. You could feel it in the air. The HOA's once pristine silence, their carefully curated image of upscale cabin life was cracking like old paint. Residents were furious, not just because they couldn't access their homes without parking down the road and hiking in, but because they realized they'd been living under a false pretense. All those years of mandatory dues, threats, rule books, and arbitrary fines, all while the very road under their tires didn't belong to them. They were prisoners of a gate they didn't install. And I just stood there, calm, watching from my cabin porch, sipping hot cider while news trucks rolled in. Yep, it made the local news. HOA locked out by bridge owner after attempted land grab backfires. The anchor even chuckled while reading it. But the best moment, the cherry on top? It happened at a special county mediation hearing that Fair Hollow Ridge requested to resolve road access disruptions. They were hoping for a court order to force me to reinstate public use. But I came prepared. I rolled in with survey maps, the expired easement contract, photos of the sabotage, and a little gift, printed screenshots of their internal HOA emails, which had been anonymously sent to me. One of them, written by Diane, read, "If we keep pressure on him and block the bridge long enough, he'll sell. He's just one guy." I handed the printout to the judge. Dead silence. The HOA's lawyer looked like he wanted to melt into his chair. The judge leaned forward, adjusted his glasses, and said, "Well, it seems clear Mr. McAllister has been far more than reasonable. He owns the bridge, he owns the land, and you," he looked right at the board, "have trespassed." With one gavel tap, the HOA's petition was denied. But it didn't stop there. They were ordered to pay my legal fees, over $42,000 in damages. And they had to inform all current residents of the access dispute in writing within 30 days. Suddenly, the power flipped. Residents started demanding HOA dissolution. The boards scattered like frightened birds. And me? I unlocked the bridge for good people only. Those who never voted for the gate, those who stopped by to apologize, those who offered pie and firewood and said, "We never agreed with them." To them, I gave a card. To Diane's cronies, nothing but a cold steel gate in a pre-recorded voice. And as winter rolled in, snow dusting the bridge rails and frost curling over the gate cameras, I felt something I hadn't in months. Peace. Not the kind you get from silence, but the kind you earn after standing your ground and watching the bullies stumble into their own trap. A bridge can be used to cross or to close. And in my case, it did both. It's funny, isn't it? All they wanted was control. Of a bridge. Of a man. Of something they never built, never owned, and never respected. But what they never understood is, you can't bully someone off their own mountain. See, people like Diane think rules are weapons, something to twist and wield against the quiet ones. The landowners, the ones who just want to be left alone. But some of us, we come from roots. From families who built their homes with their own hands, who fished streams before there were permits, who raised barns. Not hell, but knew how to do both if you pushed hard enough. So when they tried to lock me out, I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just turned the key the other way and let them feel what it's like to be on the outside looking in. Now, every time I cross that bridge, the one my father and I built from timber and sweat, I smile. Not because I won, but because I protected what mattered, with calm, with clarity, and just enough steel. So here's my question to you, friend. What would you have done? Would you have backed down, sold the land, let them gate you out? Or would you have stood your ground, bridge and all? Let me know in the comments. I read every one. And hey, if you made it to the end, comment, "Justice served," so I know you're one of the real ones. Because sometimes, justice doesn't come in courtrooms or headlines. Sometimes, it comes in the form of a laminated sign and a gate that only opens one way. Thanks for watching. Stay sharp, stay grounded, and never let anyone rewrite your deed.